Yeah, that's another cheap trick that's often used with weak storytellers and hack storytellers. And a lot of times you'll have a duel or a fight, just for the sake of having a fight, just for the sake of moving the story along. A great example of this is The General's Daughter. I don't know if you ever saw that one,
No, I
but
haven't.
there's a scene in there where Timothy Hutton plays this major in the army. It's like, okay, we need some action in the scene. Let's just make Timothy Hutton crazy as a Mad Hatter. We'll give no clues that he's this crazy beforehand. And we'll never explain how someone who's a colonel, who's this psychotic in the army, could rise to being a colonel, stay being or he was a major, excuse me, in the film, but stay at that rank and not get found out. And at the end of the film, he plants all these landmines all over the place and steps on one of them to blow himself up at the end. And it's like it's a fight scene with landmines, but it's so contrived. It's like, okay, we need some action for this point in the movie. Let's have a fight to the death here. Let's have some explosions. Let's have some danger. And it's like, if it doesn't gel, it doesn't sell. Then just dump it.
Right. Okay. On number 7, these this is real quick. Good triumphs over evil.
Yeah, you usually see that in your hack storytellers. I mean, you look at the classics like George Orwell's 1984. Good doesn't triumph over evil in that. Evil decisively wins at the end of George Orwell's 1984, where the hero of the story is basically a sad, broken, brainwashed little man who will accept anything that Big Brother says to him. And that's so you don't want to necessarily have good triumph over evil. And oftentimes in a great storyteller's thing, evil, the bad guys will win, but the hero might have like a minor victory at the end, that makes it hopeful. I wrote a story called Mary Tammy Walker. I'm plugging one of my own stories shamelessly, of course. But in my story, the bad guys win at the end of the story. And Mary has a minor victory against them, by the end of the story, but she continues fighting for what she believes in.
Okay. I got number 8 here. This is the hack storytellers checklist. Number 8, bad things happen to bad guys.
Yeah, well, as we know in real life, a lot of times, bad things can happen to anybody. They don't just happen to the bad guys in the story. And, a movie I really liked, which was actually one of the better films out there, 3:10 to Yuma. I noticed that in the film, someone would do something to make them come across as a bad guy right before they got whacked. You see what I'm saying? And it's kind of a cheap trick. But, I mean, 3:10 to Yuma is one of the better films out there. But, that was one of my few criticisms about the movie in there. And, the truth is you're really good writers. They'll show really bad things happening to the hero. And they'll show the villains, good things happening to them. They won't be boring and predictable.
Okay. Got number 9 here. The hero always gets his revenge.
Yeah, it's interesting because in Titanic, the original script, and they shot it this way too. When I saw the film, I really liked the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio got punched by David Warren, who played the butler of the rich guy, played by Timothy Zahn. As it was Billy Zane. Timothy Zane's a writer, but Zane was the millionaire in the story, and I was glad that they didn't go for the cheap trick of showing Leonardo DiCaprio punching the guy back in the movie. And I later found out it was in the script, and they did shoot that scene, but for time reasons they cut it. But it's a cheap trick. It doesn't, it's a cheap trick of, how should I say, mediocre writing, and I try to avoid scenes like that.
Okay. Once again, back to the hero. The hero always gets the girl.
Okay, let me give you an example of this. Deer Hunter, a film I thought was, I did enjoy, but I thought it was greatly overrated. It was actually a very melodramatic and lightweight film in many respects. But the scenes with the Russian roulette, where they're POWs, was what really sold the show. The rest of the film, in my opinion, wasn't that good. I actually knew Michael Cimino, and in my opinion, the guy has a much better reputation than what he deserves as a writer. But the thing is the hero. You look at the Deer Hunter, and in the Deer Hunter, De Niro is the big star when they made this movie, and he ends up with the girl, Meryl Streep, at the end of the film. And Walken, who was a much smaller star at the time, is with her, and William Goldman said he knew that De Niro would get the girl by the end of the film. And that's what happened. So it's, being predictable is being boring. That's what Uzu said. And, I don't think the hero should always get the girl.
Okay. All right. Number 11. This is the Hack Storyteller's Checklist. Number 11. A knife/ice pick is a scary weapon, like in Basic Instinct.
Yeah, that's something we see just used over and over and over and over again. I think Hitchcock was the one who really popularized, using a knife, as a dramatic weapon in Psycho. And it's been basically, used and overused time and time again in the movies. I mean, it was even used in Total Recall, where Sharon Stone pulls a knife on Arnold Schwarzenegger when they're in the kitchen and tries to stab him in the kitchen. I mean, it's a cheap trick, and it's a lot of times, if you want to do great writing, you need to avoid cheap tricks, and you need to know, if I am going to do this, is it organic to the story? Is it essential? Is it necessary for moving the story along, character development? If not, that's a sensationalistic, cheap trick, and that's the way it's usually used. That should be dropped.
All right. This is the 12th and last number, or I should say, on the checklist. Number 12, happy endings. Everything works out all right in the end.
Yeah, it's interesting because they said the difference between Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg was the fact that, Spielberg usually had a happy ending for the most part. Or even if he didn't have a happy ending, he had wrapped up the answer of what's going on in the story, like, well, everything's going to be all right for us as a society or as a people. Even in the film, I'm trying to remember the second one he did, Sugarland Express, or even though the family that, didn't achieve their goals, who were these criminals at the end, they end up getting slapped down by the cops at the end of the movie. At the same time, he's saying, well, the world we live in it's going to be all right, folks. These people, they kind of got what they deserved. It's okay. The system's all right. Everything's fine. It does. But whereas Kubrick, he likes to end on a question. You see what I'm saying? Instead of wrapping it up all in a neat little package, and giving us necessarily the happy ending at the end. You look at the end of Barry Lyndon, it's a very downer ending. You look at the end of Full Metal Jacket, also a very downer, dark ending. And it raises questions, and for the smarter people in the audience, they'll start seeing these questions and thinking about these questions and growing as a person from the question. Whereas if you just give it all a happy ending and don't worry about it, hey, yeah, let's keep them dumb and happy, and let's keep them on the farm. Let's keep them barefoot and pregnant. That's pretty much what it's saying.
All right, we're going to move on to another part of this book. It's called The Writer's Test. Now, I'm going to have Tyler explain the writer's tests, and while he's explaining it, all you folks watching at home, this is audience participation now. Go and get a pad and a pencil or a pen. A pad, pencil, or pen. Go to the kitchen. We'll give you 5 seconds. Okay. Go ahead and tell